Girivaradari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Shodhanandana Prasjalaranjana. Shodhanandana Prasjalaranjana. Jamunatira Vanachari. Jamunatira Vanachari. Jayo Radha Matava Kunja Bihari. Jayo Radha Matava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Yashodhanandana Vrajjanaranjana. Yashodhanandana Vrajjanaranjana. Jamunatira Vanachari. Jamunatira Vanachari. Jayo Radha Matava Kunja Bihari. Radha Matava Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paragrajikacharya Ashtatara Satashi Shrimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Brinda Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Go Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Narayanam namaskritya naram cheva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayat. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 21, chapter entitled Instructions by Maharaj Prithu, text number 47. Hiranyakashipuschapi Bhagavan Nindayatamaha Vivikshu Achyagatsunu Prahladasyanu Bhavataha Hiranyakashipuschapi Bhagavan Nindayatama Vivikshu Achyagatsunu Prahladasyanu Bhavataha Hiranyakashipu, the father of Prahlad Maharaj. Cha, also. Api, again. Bhagavat, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nindaya, by blaspheming. Tammaha, in the darkest region of hellish life. Vivikshu, entered. Achyagath, was delivered. Suno, of his son. Praladasya, of Maharaj Prahlad. Anubhavataha, by the influence of. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Similarly, Hiranyakashipu, who by the dint of his sinful activities always defied the supremacy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, entered into the darkest region of hellish life. But by the grace of his great son Prahlad Maharaj, he also was delivered and went back home, back to Godhead. Translation responsively. Similarly, Hiranyakashipu, who by dint of his sinful activities always defied the supremacy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, entered into the darkest region of hellish life. But by the grace of his great son, Prahlad Maharaj, he was also delivered and went back home, back to Godhead. Purport. When Prahlad Maharaj was offered benediction by Nrsimhadev, due to his great devotion and tolerance, he refused to accept any benediction from the Lord, thinking that such acceptance was not befitting a sincere devotee. The rendering of service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is expectation of a good reward, is deprecated by Prahlad Maharaj as mercantile business. Because Prahlad Maharaj was a Vaishnava, he did not ask a benediction for his personal self. Param, can you just turn it down as such? Just turn it down just a touch. But was very affectionate towards his father. Although his father tortured him and would have killed him, had he himself not been killed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Prahlad Maharaj begged pardon for him from the Lord. This favor was immediately granted by the Lord, and he returned back home, back to Godhead, by the grace of his son. Prahlad Maharaj is the topmost example of a Vaishnava who was always compassionate towards sinful persons suffering a hellish life within this material world. Krishna is therefore known as Paradukkha Dukhi, Kripambuddhi, or one who is compassionate toward others suffering and who is an ocean of mercy. Like Prahlad Maharaj, all pure devotees of the Lord come to this material world with full compassion to deliver the sinful. They undergo all kinds of tribulations, suffering them with tolerance, because that is another qualification of a Vaishnava, who tries to deliver all sinful persons from the hellish conditions of material existence. Vaishnavas are therefore offered the following prayer: Vansha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. The chief concern of a Vaishnava is to deliver the fallen souls. Om Gyan Timarandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityanando Shri Advaita Gadadha Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this pastime is describing and discussing Maharaj Prithu. Prithu Maharaj is a Devarshi. Sorry, he's a Rajarshi, which means he's a saintly king. Regardless of which Varna and ashram that you are in, you may be a brahmachari or a grihastha or a vanaprastha or a sannyasi. And you may have Brahminical tendencies, or you may have Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Sudra tendencies. But regardless of where you're situated in life, you have to develop the qualities of saintliness. So he's known as a Rajarshi, Raja Rishi. He's a king, but simultaneously he's considered a rishi. A rishi means saintly person, sage. So regardless of which situation we're in, we have to cultivate the good qualities, spiritual qualities, devotional qualities. When Lord Chaitanya is teaching Sanatana Goswami in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he mentions there are 26 qualities of a devotee. Kripalu, Akrita Droha, Sachasara, Sama. He gives 26, he lists like a whole list. And when they're commented upon in the Harinam Chintamani by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the conversation between Haridas Thakur and Lord Chaitanya, then it describes 25 of the qualities are Tatashta Lakshana, and one is Swarupa Lakshana. Swarupa Lakshana means it is the essential quality which every devotee must have and must cultivate. And the other are Tatashta. Tatashta means sometimes they manifest and sometimes they're not manifest. And they manifest to different degrees in different devotees. Just like one of the qualities is called Mridu. Mridu means mild. A devotee is mild, but not every devotee is mild. It's a Tatashta quality. It may be more in certain devotees, that quality may be more manifest and less manifest in other devotees. Just like if you look at the Pandavas, Yudhishthira Maharaj was quite mild, Mridu, right? But Bhimasen was not. Right? Bhima was not known for being mild. Yeah, he was known for being ferocious. He was a different type of personality, but that his love for Krishna was equal to Yudhishthira. They were both pure devotees. So all of the qualities are Tatashta, which means sometimes they manifest, and they manifest to different degrees. But one quality is considered Swarup, which means essential. It is the definition of a devotee. And it is called Krishnaika Sharana. Krishna Eka Sharana. Sharana means surrendered. Krishna means the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Eka means one. Right? It means that you are surrendered to Krishna, fully surrendered to Krishna, alone. It doesn't mean that he is the only person we're surrendered to. We're surrendered to many people. Right? We're surrendered to our gurus. We're surrendered to the senior devotees. We're surrendered to our spiritual authorities. We're surrendered to many different forms of Krishna. We're surrendered to Krishna's associates. Right? We're surrendered to many personalities. But Krishna is the first. And he is the most important. And he is the Ishtadev. He is the person who is in our heart. He is the person that we meditate on. And then everyone else is respected in relationship to him. Prabhupada says in the Gita, in the purport, chapter 11 or 12, Prabhupada says that we should focus our attention on the form of Krishna. And he specifically says the form of Krishna in Vrindavan. And Prabhupada says, it's interesting, he says that we should not divert our attention to any other form. Prabhupada says that. Right? We should just meditate. Krishna should be the object of our devotion. Krishna Eka Sharana, Krishna Eka Sharana means just fully surrendered to Krishna. And then we see everyone else in relation to that relationship. How does everyone fit into that relationship? So regardless of where we find ourselves in the material world, all of us have to cultivate this quality and all the 26 qualities of the devotee. We should become saintly. One time a reporter asked Prabhupada, how will I recognize one of your disciples? And Prabhupada said, they are perfect ladies and gentlemen. That's how we should be known. Oh, the Hare Krishnas, they're such nice people. Right? Okay, maybe they dress funny. Maybe they put funny stuff on their face. Maybe their food is a little bit different. Maybe they speak sometimes in languages we can't understand. Their names are exotic. Many things. They may say many things, but they should say, but they're the nicest people. They are saintly people. That should be the quality. They should respect the devotees, because people have lost faith. If you go to chapter 7 of Canto 1, chapter 7 is when Vyasadeva is instructed. The chapter is actually called, it's a relationship to Ashwatthama. It's when Arjuna and Krishna are chasing Ashwatthama. But the beginning of the chapter is carrying on from chapters 4 to 6, and it describes that Vyasadeva had to write the Srimad Bhagavatam. And when Vyasadeva wrote the Bhagavatam, he went into a deep state of meditation. You can't write the Bhagavatam without going into a deep state of meditation. I mean, you can't even speak on the Bhagavatam. If we're giving a class, you have to be in the right state of consciousness. You can't sit on the Vyasasana and speak and, your consciousness is all over the place. Or you can't be thinking of material things. You have to be, it's a deep state of consciousness, it's a meditation. So when Vyasadeva was writing the Bhagavatam, he had to go into a very deep state of consciousness. So he meditated on Kali Yuga, because Kali Yuga was just beginning. And he was writing the Srimad Bhagavatam for everyone in Kali Yuga. Right? So he meditated on Bhagavatam. He meditated on Kali Yuga. And interesting, because when the Bhagavatam mentions what he saw when he began to meditate on Kali Yuga, it could have mentioned many things, because there are many things going on in this age. But specifically, it says the resonance of Kali Yuga are ashraddha. Ashraddha means without faith. This is one of the inherent qualities of Kali Yuga. People lose faith. They're losing faith in everything, right? And it's an interesting situation in Kali. We're having an election soon, I think. Is it federal or state? There's an election coming up. Federal. Okay, federal's coming up. Okay. So there's a federal election coming up. But they have done surveys to survey the citizens, and people have said in the surveys they don't believe the statements of the politicians. So what's the point? We've lost faith. We know they're not going to fulfill their promises in general, right? And yet we're still voting for them. It's actually insanity. Right? Someone says to you, I'll do it, but I probably won't. How do you have a relationship with that person? So people have lost faith. That's the inherent nature of the age. And regarding religion, on the last Australian census, which was a couple of years ago, it was noted by the people who study the census that identification with religious bodies is decreasing rapidly in the Western world, in Australia. However, people are becoming more spiritual than ever before. People no longer see themselves as religious because they've lost faith in institutions, religious institutions. But they're more interested in spirituality than ever before. Right? It's very challenging. It's challenging for us because we are a religion, we're also highly spiritual. And now we've got to work out how to attract and bring everyone in, understanding their temperament and their consciousness. They've lost faith, but they're still interested. Right? We're dealing with very complicated people these days. The world's not an easy place to navigate anymore. Right? So the one thing that people will be attracted to is when the Hare Krishnas are saintly people. They're just good people. They can trust us. Even one man came to our farm a year or so ago or something. And he said, I come to your farm, like to your Sunday feast, because amongst all the religions and everything, you guys and the Buddhists are the only ones I trust anymore. I've lost faith in all the others. So that's good. So we have to maintain that faith at all costs. Right? Because if they lose faith in us, then the world is finished. Srila Prabhupada actually said, ISKCON will go down in history for saving humanity in its darkest hour. Prabhupada said that. I mean, that's a big statement. We are going to save the world in its darkest hour. When will that happen? Maybe in 6 months? Maybe in 6 years? Maybe in 60 years? Maybe in 600 years? I don't know when it will be, but there will be a time when the world just actually begins to fall apart, and ISKCON will be the saving grace. And why is that? Because the devotees have saintly qualities. So Prithu Maharaj, he is known as a Rajarshi. Rajarshi means he's a saintly king. Right? We all need to become saintly. Okay, we may be a king, or we may not be a king. We may be a pot washer. We may be the temple president. We may be a grihasta. We may be a brahmachari or a brahmacharini. You can be so many things, but you have to cultivate saintly qualities. This is what transforms the heart of other people. Just like Prabhupada. How did Prabhupada start the movement? He wasn't offering anything material to anyone. Right? People were coming, he wasn't offering. Why were they attracted to come back again and again and again and ultimately dedicate their lives to him? Just like on the weekend, we had a retreat. We had Western people come to our farm. They spent a couple of days with us learning yoga and vegetarian cooking and bhakti yoga. And we taught them how to offer the food and how to do kirtan with us. And we had a satsanga where they just asked questions about things related to Krishna. And I was explaining to those people that the members of the Hare Krishna movement, all of us, we would die for Prabhupada, literally. We will give up our life for Prabhupada. I've never even met him. I never even met him. When he left the world, I was only 8 years old. I never saw Prabhupada. I never met him. And yet, I'll dedicate my life to following everything that he taught, right? And even if I had to, I would give up my life for him. Right? So that's how he started the Hare Krishna movement. He wasn't giving anything material, right? But he was so saintly, when you met him, you just wanted to dedicate yourself to him, right? And that's the quality that we all have to develop. If we develop those saintly types of qualities, then people will be inspired to follow this movement, and it will become more and more powerful. So this is what we're learning from Prithu Maharaj, right? Why was he successful as a king? Because he was a saintly king. He was an excellent administrator. He was a powerful kshatriya, but he was a saintly person. He gave respect to the brahmanas. And that's what these verses are discussing. Right? Now, it mentions specifically in this verse that he delivered his father. Who was his father? Vena. Yeah, Vena. Right? He's one of the famous demoniac personalities in the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam shows you both sides. It shows you what you should be, and it shows you what you should not be. It's a good way to teach. Gurujan Prabhu teaches us like this. When I first became a devotee, I remember listening to one of his lectures, and he said that when you teach, and this is how Krishna teaches in Bhagavad Gita, you show the positive and then you show the negative. Right? If you're trying to explain to someone, this is what white is like, what's the best way to show what white is like? You show them black. Okay, this is black. Now you understand what white is? Right? Because when there's a contrast, you understand it very clearly. Right? Okay, I want you to understand this, but you also have to understand that, the opposite. So the Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita does this continuously. The Gita says you should be like this, you should be like this. These are the qualities. Chapter 13, there's a whole list of qualities. I think beginning of chapter 14. Chapter 16, there's another huge list of qualities, similar to the 26 qualities of the devotees. But then in chapter 16, there's also a list of what you should not be, demoniac qualities. How do you understand how to be a devotee? Right? Part of the way of understanding, we show you the good qualities, but now we'll show you the demoniac qualities. This is what you should not be. So we need to see both. And Krishna, because Krishna is the best teacher, he is the Adi Guru, him and Lord Balaram, they show you all of the best qualities and the most negative qualities. And that is the best way to teach. I show you the good, I show you the bad. So the Bhagavatam, it is Paramahamsa Samhita, which means it's the topmost scripture. There's no scripture like the Bhagavatam. If you look at the Vedic literatures, Jiva Goswami says the Puranas and the Itihasas, which means the Smriti section of the Vedas, or the stories, the ones that have the stories in them, as opposed to the Shruti, the philosophical section, like the Upanishads and other bodies of work. The histories, Jiva Goswami comments, they are more important in Kali Yuga. The Puranas are more important than the actual Vedas in Kali Yuga, because people need stories to remember things. And this is one of the positive ways to give classes. If you want to keep everyone awake, which can be a challenge in Kali Yuga, right, keeping devotees awake during class, a very effective way is to tell stories. Right? You tell the story, and then within the story you get the philosophy. Right? So the Jiva Goswami says the Puranas, or the Shastras that have the stories, are the most important in Kali Yuga. Now there's 18 major Puranas and 18 minor Puranas. Right? And of the 18 major Puranas, the most significant is the Bhagavat Purana, or the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Srimad Bhagavatam has been commented upon by dozens of commentators. There's no other Purana or Vedic literature which has so many commentaries. I think the Padma Purana or Vishnu Purana, one of them has a couple of commentaries. Right? But the Bhagavatam, it emphasizes why the Bhagavatam is the most important. And Lord Chaitanya, when he was living in Jagannath Puri, every day he would go to Tota Gopinath temple and he would listen from Gadadhar Pandit on the Srimad Bhagavatam. And it says in Chaitanya Bhagavat that he would hear the pastimes of Dhruva Maharaj and Prahlad Maharaj hundreds of times. Right? So even for Lord Chaitanya, it was the favorite scripture. It's the topmost scripture, the Srimad Bhagavatam. There's nothing higher than the Bhagavatam. When the acharyas, when they need reference, when they need to make their comments authoritative, most of the time they quote the Srimad Bhagavatam, right? Especially Canto 11, the Uddhava Gita, the summary by Krishna. There's so many deep philosophical points within the 11th canto. So it is considered to be the topmost scripture. So it gives us, in the Bhagavatam, it gives us the best and it gives us the worst, so we can understand. Right? So here we hear about the topmost demon of all time, the greatest demon in universal history. I mean, this is a big position or a big title to achieve. Just like one time, one devotee said to Prabhupada, "Prabhupada, I am the most fallen." Prabhupada said, "You are not the most anything." To be the most of something or the best of something, that takes a lot of work. Most of us will never become the best of anything, right? But Hiranyakashipu, he is the greatest demon of all time, right? In history, right? And King Vena is not far behind, right? I mean, Vena was so evil when he was a kid. You remember, how old are you guys? 7.5 and 8, 7.5. So imagine you're playing together. This is what Vena used to do, is playing with his friends like you guys, like your age. And then they were standing on the side of a cliff and he would say, "Oh, what's that down there?" And they would look over and then he would push them. Push his friends over the cliff. And he'd say, "Hurry, ball." And then that's demoniac. Can you imagine? We can't even most of us could not even do that as an adult. Sometimes we might like to do that to someone, but, we couldn't do that. I couldn't imagine actually doing that to anyone. What to speak when you're 7 or 8. I mean, what sort of a person were you? This is Vena. This is demoniac. So what is the destination of such people? Right? There's a philosophy going around these days in what we call New Age circles, Sado spiritual circles, that everyone is just on an evolution of consciousness. We're just all going forward and we're just learning more and more about everything. We're just all becoming more enlightened. But it's not true. Because some people are not acting like that in the world. You can see not everyone is acting in not everyone is progressing their consciousness. Some people are rapidly going back. So if you rapidly go back, where do you go? You get punished in the next life. Right? So Vena, I mean, can you imagine? I mean, he comes before Yamaraj, and imagine what would you do with a guy? You know, oh, what did you do? You pushed, 7 of your friends off cliffs. You poisoned a number of the other friends. The list is, you couldn't even work out how to punish that person. Right? So he was so sinful, yet he was delivered. And why was he delivered? Because he was connected to Prithu Maharaj, a saintly person. It actually says within the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam, if you are a Majjhima Adhikari, which means a mid-range devotee, 14 generations of your family will be delivered when you go back to Godhead. They will also be elevated. By Prithu Maharaj's saintliness, even someone as demoniac as Vena was liberated and cleansed of his sins and he went back to Godhead. Right? That's the potency. It says if someone's a Kanishta Adhikari, 1 generation goes back. Right? If someone is a Uttama Adhikari, 100 generations go back. Just like Prabhupada. Prabhupada was so powerful, when he left the world, 100 generations of people connected to him, forward and back, have been liberated. That's how powerful it is. So, Vena is a completely demoniac person, and Prithu Maharaj is a completely saintly person. So we're seeing like the perfect contrast between the two. Now, in order to deliver everyone, Prabhupada's emphasizing in this purport, the quality of a devotee is para, dukkha, dukhi. Para means supreme. Para Brahman. What does that mean, that name? Do you know what your name means? Supreme Absolute Truth, yeah. Para, param. Whenever this word comes, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says param gati. He means the supreme destination, like the topmost thing. Para Brahman, param atma. Right? There's so many atmas, but one is a paramatma. It means the supreme thing. What is the topmost? Para dukkha dukhi. Para means a devotee is supremely merciful. That's how we're supposed to be, right? And you see in this day and age, in Kali Yuga, there's a lot of mental disease. World Health Organization says the biggest disease on the planet right now is mental disease, right? Don't worry about cancer. Don't worry about heart disease. Don't worry about these things. These are secondary, right? Mental disease is the #1 disease, and it's increasing rapidly. Now, one reason why so many people have mental disease is because they're too absorbed in themselves, right? A devotee should not have mental disease. Why? He hasn't got time. Seriously, he hasn't got time. Right? Oh, I'm depressed. Why are you depressed? Because you sit around thinking about yourself all the time. Of course you're going to be depressed. If any of us think about ourselves all the time, we'll get depressed. Oh, but I'm like this, and oh, I'm like that. If you don't give yourself time to do that, you won't be depressed. Be more concerned about the suffering of other people. Right? Our suffering is insignificant. I mean, is our life really bad? Is it really bad? I don't think so. Well, we're living in the most livable city in the world. Right? Wins nearly practically every year. The most livable city in the world. Like, we're living in one of the most affluent countries on the planet. Right? In one of the most affluent temples in ISKCON. I mean, seriously, if you look at the situation, the affluence that we have in our lives, materially and spiritually, we have a great situation. And we've still got time to be depressed amongst all of that. If you don't want to be depressed, then start worrying about other people's problems. The material world has serious problems, right? It's got serious problems at this point in time. And we have the solution to those problems. A devotee is meant to be para dukkha dukkhi. You don't worry about your problems. Worry about how humanity is suffering. That was Prabhupada's consciousness. Prabhupada was always he said he was racking his brain how to spread Krishna consciousness. We have to think more and more and more. How do I spread Krishna consciousness? How do I save the conditioned souls? How do we protect them from birth and death? And we have to think of newer and newer ways to do it. Right? And right now in history, we're going through one of the biggest changes in communication history. Right? In the biggest change we've gone through for about 70 years. Right? The last time we went through a change this big in modern society, when radio changed to television as the main medium for communication. Right? You go back 70 years, people listen to the radio. That's how they learn things. Even in America, back in the 1930s, there was radio, like they would have, like now people watch TV shows, so there'd be radio broadcasts of dramas or stories. So there was one book called War of the Worlds. So they were having that on the radio, and it's about aliens attacking the Earth. So some people, because people would listen to the radio, that was entertainment, so they turned on the radio, and there was this whole story going on about how we'd be, and many people in America thought it was real, because they came in halfway through the show, and it just said, oh, and it was all very dramatic, sounds and everything, and the aliens are coming, they're taking over, they've just taken over the Empire State. People actually thought America was being attacked. That was the way things were communicated. Right? And then about 70 years ago, television became the main medium. Suddenly, it turned, and then you can see it. So everyone dropped the radio, it became secondary, and television became primary. Right? And now, after about 70 years, now we've seen there's a whole shift. Television will become very secondary very soon. It's already becoming like that. Right? And then what's the main way to communicate now? Right? You look around, like if I look around this room now, I can see, I can see about 15 smartphones right in front of devotees, right now. These smartphones are becoming the way to communicate. Social media is becoming the way to communicate. Right? So as devotees, as para dukkha dukkhi, right, we have to be on that platform, right, as much as any. Right? We have to be attracting people to the pure message of Krishna consciousness in a world where people have lost faith in religion and institutions, but are interested in spirituality. And then they've got a new medium for contact, and we have to be out there on the forefront of that medium, bringing them a saintly message to attract them back to Krishna. Right? And if every devotee is concentrating on bringing people back to Krishna on that platform, in real life, going out on Harinam, book distribution, right, prasadam distribution, inviting them to programs, inviting them to retreats, this is the way to bring people back to Krishna. We have to give them our association on every single platform, all day, every day, because everyone is fighting for their attention now. Right? And we have to find newer and newer ways. Say, hey, come over here. People need excitement. They need color. Right? It has to be attractive. Right? Why is this temple decorated so beautifully? We could have just left the walls plain and normal, right? But when you come in here, I've brought many people in here over the years. I bring Western people in here sometimes. They walk in and they become silent. They go, as soon as they see. If all the walls were plain, there would be nothing. But you have to attract them. You have to grab their attention. Right? There's the mercy of the devotee. We have to think of newer and newer ways. So the quality of the devotee is compassion. Interesting, when Lord Chaitanya speaks to Sanatana Goswami, he gives 26 qualities. The first quality he gives is kripalu. The second quality he gives is akrita droha, which means humility. Right? Interesting, because normally we would say humility is the first quality of the devotee, but Lord Chaitanya says no, the first quality is compassion. Right? And how to be compassionate these days? The world is changing. We have to show compassion on every platform. Impersonal platforms, social media, right? Personal platforms when we actually meet people, you know. Even one girl who's just come to live at our farm recently, she met the devotees through social media. That's how it was. You know, because we post things on Facebook, she saw it, she became attracted, she came, she liked it. Now she's becoming a devotee. Now she's chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra every day, learning to offering her food, right, reading Prabhupada's books. So the point is, it doesn't matter how we do it, but we just have to attract the conditioned souls back to Krishna. And if you attract the conditioned souls back to Krishna, you'll be blissful all the time, even in this material world, which is full of birth and death. So we'll stop here. We'll see if there's any questions or comments on anything that we discussed. Yes, madam.
Thank you for such a nice class, Prabhu. So just on a personal note about the methods of preaching, I notice you're doing your regular videos on Facebook. What response do you get? What sort of responses do you get to that?
What sort of responses do we get? Have you met Patsy yet at the farm? You haven't met her yet? Yeah, so she's becoming a devotee. So, you know, that was just from seeing our posts and becoming interested. Another man in the local area, close to us, he wrote the other day and he said, "We really like your posts, keep doing them." So people are becoming interested, and it's a way of bringing people. Like whenever we have a Sunday feast at the farm, because we're in a very isolated place, like you have to drive there, most of the advertising we do is on social media. You know, our retreats, everything we do, we just say, you know, we've got events on, come on, come on, come on. So we just have to learn a little bit about how to present these things. The leaders in social media, our gurus, like Gary V and these people, Shukadev Prabhu and myself, we went to see him when he's... Did you actually see him? Yeah. He came? You stayed when he... Yeah, he came on, yeah. So, you know, the people who are the leaders in social media, because the world is becoming very different now, and these people understand how it is becoming different and focused on these things. So, you know, they say just produce content constantly. Just give people content. You know, people wake up every day, they just want to see what you're doing. They do. That's you know, I mean, now the most popular TV shows are like reality TV, which is not reality, but that's what they call it, reality TV. But they just want to see what people are doing, you know, and then they all comment, "Oh, they got up. Oh, they brushed their teeth. Oh, they had Cocoa Pops for breakfast." So, you know, for some reason people are interested in these things. So you just have to produce content constantly. Relative content, and that's the way you attract people. So that's what, I mean, we're only doing it in a very small way, but we're actually getting results. We're getting effect. That's all. Yeah.
So, as you know, when he got cursed, he got a boon to be a devotee on earthly planet for 7 words for being a demon for 3 words. So he chose to be demon for 3 words. So he was participating in the pastime of the Lord to give him pleasure. So according to this word, he said he's entering into the darkest region of the hellish life. So how do we understand that supporting in the pastime of the Lord, and he enjoyed it, even though he played as a bad boy role? So if you can...
If you take it from the perspective of what he did, that's where he would have gone. But because he was killed by the Lord himself, he was liberated. And I mean, their situation is a little different. Because, you know, they were Jai and Vijay, there was a curse involved. You know, Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, then Ravana and Kumbhakarna, then Shishupal, Dantavakra, then Jagai, then Madhai. You know, so it was a little different. But the basic premise is that if you act bad, you will suffer. You know, except when you're killed by the Lord, then you are liberated of everything. But Prabhupada comments that it depends on your consciousness at the time of death, whatever you see, because many people, Prabhupada makes this comment, I think in the first canto in a purport, he says that on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, when people were killed by Krishna and Arjuna, so the last thing they saw was Krishna. Now, Arjuna was coming towards them and he killed them. And the last thing they saw was Krishna. That was the last thing before they left. So Prabhupada says those who were envious of Krishna, they merged into the Brahmajyoti because they didn't have qualification to go back to the spiritual world. So they didn't get personal liberation. It says that those who were not envious of Krishna, the last thing they thought was, he is so beautiful, right? They went to Vaikuntha. But those who were envious did not go to Vaikuntha. So it depends on your consciousness at the time of death. Basic premise.
So also when it speaks about how many members get delivered from the devotee, so actually it doesn't necessarily mean they go to spiritual. It just means that if they're envious, they don't have the qualification, it's in the Brahmani.
What's the point?
Like you're mentioning that the relatives of the devotee.
Is it a question? Yeah. What is it?
You're mentioning the relatives of the devotee, they go back to body. Yeah. But it doesn't necessarily mean they go to Vaikuntha. Because they don't have qualification, how can they go? Is it right understanding?
No, that means that, when it says in the Bhagavatam at the 7th canto, it says 14 generations will be liberated. That means, they will be liberated. Qualification is not there, but it is... When I was young, we used to go to rock concerts. And then one time we were at a concert in the Maya Music Bowl. The one big band was playing Eurythmics, like big band. And thousands of people were there. And there was different sections in the concert, like you had to pay more to get into the front. And then I was there, I was in the back section. And then one of my friends was security. He was like on the door, in between the two sections. He turned around and he saw me and he said, come into the front section, and get close to the band. But then I because it was so loud we couldn't say anything, he just said, come like this. And I looked at him and I said, I've got these guys with me, I've got friends with me. So I can't come in because I've got the friends. And he looked, and then because they were connected to me, I was his friend. And they were my friends. He looked and he said, so we all got in. So then, if you're a devotee and Krishna's taking you back to Vaikuntha, back to Goloka Vrindavan, and then he looks behind and says, okay, those guys can come as well. Your family, and then your grandmother and your great-grandmother, and then someone who was born 14 generations ago you've never heard of, and some Irish lady out the back of Dublin, she...
How can I understand? Because the consciousness won't be right?
Yeah, but the covering of the material energy which is on us, if Krishna wants to, he can dissipate all that, bring you back to your pure state of consciousness and take you back. Krishna can do that. The reason he doesn't do that is because our philosophy is you have to give your independence freely to Krishna. But Krishna can't do that. He can take us all back right now if he wants. He can just take away all the ignorance, give us full enlightenment once again, and take us back to himself. He doesn't do that because he wants us to put the effort in ourselves. He wants to see the love coming from us. But in that particular case, maybe he's just, it's just like Jiva Goswami says, Lord Chaitanya is intoxicated with love for Krishna. Right? Lord Chaitanya is intoxicated. He said he dances like a madman. Right? He's dancing like a mad person, Lord Chaitanya, and he's intoxicated. And it says, just like Jiva Goswami gives the example, like a king, sometimes the king drinks too much, he gets intoxicated, and he starts right? And then he goes into the treasury and he grabs a box of jewels. And he walks out onto the street, and everyone's just Sudras and they're just walking around. He just starts giving out the jewels. Come on, hey, you take them. Everybody. He's intoxicated. So he's like a madman. So it says that Lord Chaitanya is so mad in love of God, he just says, have Krishna prem. Right? You say, oh, I'm not qualified. Have it. Right? And everyone goes back. So it's not always about how qualified we are. It's about the mood that the Lord is in. So, okay, one devotee goes back to Godhead after many lifetimes in the material world. And then Lord Chaitanya or Lord Krishna, they say, okay, the 14 generations, you also go back. Just go. I'm not qualified. Here you go. Just go quickly. Now, back. Right? You're not going to argue. Okay. Yeah, yeah.
They will become devotees in their next life and therefore be liberated, is that right? And so that their devotional life would start those relatives. And in that way, in their next life, they are liberated, but they obviously have to go through it.
The general indication that's given is they go back to Godhead, generally. Whether it's a gradual thing or they go straight back. I mean, it's within Krishna's power to do anything like that. But it does mention they go back. It's not specifically mentioned, if you have to go here or there or do like that. In the pastime of Ajamil, in the 6th canto, it says that when he went back, it says that, he chanted the name Narayan, Narayan. But then the Bhagavatam says he took birth in Hardwar, had to perfect himself and then go back. So it's not specifically mentioned, but either way we go back. So.
How do we understand the Kanishta? As Kanishta himself doesn't have a power to go back, but how he can liberate anyone else, whereas he himself is hard to go back. How we can understand that more?
The power of bhakti is so powerful. Right? If someone's a devotee, it is such a powerful thing. Bhakti attracts even Krishna. If someone can understand that Krishna is God in the Kali Yuga, in this Western world, it's so extraordinary. And to have such power, even if there's so many material desires and so much covering there, it is so powerful that it has great effect. And once again, if Krishna is attracted to that, and then he decides, okay, I'll give it a generation some benefit as well, then it's up to Krishna. It's hard for us to reconcile things or understand things. In the Harinam Chintamani it says, when we're chanting the holy name, there is the mist of anartas and the cloud of ignorance covering us. Right? So now you go outside, I don't know, it's a cloudy day I think, I can't remember, but if we go outside, right, and it's cloudy, so you can't see the sun. The sun is there, we cannot see. Right? So from our perspective, it's hard to understand what's going on. From Krishna's perspective, on the other side, like sometimes you get in a plane and it's like an overcast day and then suddenly you burst through the clouds and it's all sunlight. That's a different reality. So from Krishna's perspective, what he's doing up there, it's nothing for him if he wants to liberate someone. He's all powerful. He can liberate all of us right now. He can empty the universe. Right? He doesn't want to do it that way. He's got his way of doing it. But if he wants to, he can do it.
Difficult to liberate one generation or 10 generations. You can do it so many ways.
Yeah, my guru wrote a Vyasa Puja homage a number of years ago, actually not long before he left the planet, and he said he was giving the Buddhist example of the crack pot. There's a Buddhist monk, every day would go and get water, And he would carry the pots, like on a stick, and there's 2 pots on either side, and he'd walk back to the ashram. And one of the pots had a crack in it, so the whole way it would leak along. So then some people said, oh, it's a crack pot. Because sometimes we call people who are not right, we say, oh, they're a crackpot, like that. So, this pot was cracked. And then people say, I'll throw it away, it's useless. But then after every day you take the water to the ashram, the water which would drop, it would water the flowers, and the flowers grew very beautifully on that side. So even though it was a crackpot, it was doing so much good. So then sometimes, there's people, they're crackpots. They're not sort of there, but they're bringing so many people to Krishna. And I can think, I've seen, as Aniruddha Prabhu was saying, I've seen so many devotees. They themselves, they struggle like anything, but they brought the most people to the temple. And some of those people became initiated devotees like that. So we can't understand how it all works. So, any other? Yeah.
Just to comment on Haram Brahma's question, Krishna actually arranged for them for Hiranyakashipu, not for the help, because he had Radha as his son.
Yeah, good comment. Any other question? Yeah.
Just on that point, you mentioned, I don't know if you mentioned it or emphasised it, but their behaviour and what they were doing was the darkest region of ignorance. Not that afterwards, because he was already liberated, but he had already, the fact that they fell into the behaviour of persecuting Brahmanas and, killing cows. That was the darkest region of hellish life.
Hmm.
Then you go afterwards, go over here.
Hmm.
By the mercy of Prahlad, he was liberated from that state. Even though he was the conqueror of the universe, he was still in that state.
Yeah, it's interesting, the pastime of Jagai and Madhai, because then that was the 4th birth. That wasn't mentioned in the original pastime, but they took birth a 4th time. And it's said that those 2 committed every sin possible. There's nothing they did not do, and the worst things they did. But it mentions actually that the one thing they did not do was Vaishnav Aparad. Somehow they never offended the devotees. And because they didn't do that, then that's how they were able to receive the mercy. If you commit Vaishnav Aparad, that turns everything into a whole another situation. Because now you're dealing with Krishna. And that's not, if he's angry, that's not good for you. If you get some, that's all.
Is that because Nityananda wasn't offended when he smashed the pot?
Lord Chaitanya was offended.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. It's because...
And you have to say that his treatment Prahlad probably was one of the precipitated the anger of Lord Srimad. So he was I don't know whether that's fair to say that they didn't commit Vaishnava Aparad, because otherwise attacking Lord Nityananda probably wasn't the best option they could have chosen.
Yeah, well, it says up until that point. Up until that point. But yeah, as you say, then Lord Nityananda's mood, he's our guru. He's the Adi Guru. So he teaches us, even when we're attacked, we'll be tolerant. But we won't tolerate other devotees being attacked. Ourselves, that's a different thing. If someone's crazy, okay, they did that, that's whatever. But if someone attacks another devotee, then we will defend. Someone had their hand up? Yeah.
Luke, Lord Chaitanya, when Vasudeva Dasa said that I would like to have all the sins of the universe come upon my head if one could be liberated, and Lord Chaitanya said to him that you don't have to go, Krishna won't allow you to suffer like that for the sake of others, but simply by your willing, the whole universe can be liberated. So Lord Chaitanya said that the desire of the devotee can liberate
Yeah, because, I mean, if we look at ISKCON's a powerful institution, it's a successful institution, it's spreading everywhere, and it's only happening for one reason, because one person has a strong desire to take everyone back to Godhead. It's Prabhupada. Because Prabhupada has such a strong desire, this whole thing operates. We all get up in the morning, we turn up, we do our service, we perform austerity, everything we do for one reason, because Prabhupada desires it. Right? So because he wants everyone to go back to Godhead, we all operate. So it's true, it's the same thing. If a pure devotee has a desire, then everything takes place. So. Yeah, we've got nothing else to do anyway, so might as well preach. The world's boring, and what else are you going to do? Yeah. So.
Speaking of preaching, you introduce someone especially from the Western background to Krishna consciousness. How do you take it further once you have introduced them to temple and Krishna?
There's many ways you take it further. The main thing is that you have to be extremely personal with the person. Philosophy will attract people to Krishna, but it's the interpersonal relationships which will make them stay. So you have to look after them, like Prabhupada said to Prabhu Vishnu Prabhu. He said, preach with the courage of an Englishman and the heart of a Bengali mother. So that's how you have to be. You preach and preach and preach, and it's difficult, and then we push ourselves. But when someone actually comes, you have to look after them like a Bengali mother. Right? So that's how it works. You just have to look after them and really, genuinely, we want to do it, it's not we're doing it artificially, but you genuinely have to look after them, take care of them, and just constantly. And it's constant work. And Prabhupada said, don't be surprised who comes, be surprised who stays. Just like our farm, we're preaching to Western people, and what month? Yeah, last year. Last year, probably about 5 people came and they started practicing, and about 3 of them have fallen away. Right? And it wasn't from our side, we were giving as much as we could. And they even said that to us, but they just said, maybe we're not ready for it yet, or like that. But you just have to give them as much as you can. It's like, as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, you have to shed gallons of blood. You just have to be there for them, be a genuine friend, and they'll be attracted. Even one person who left, when he wrote to me and he said, I'm not going to come around so much now. He didn't tell me what the reason was, but he said, I'd never felt so loved in my life. He said that. So from our side, we were doing the right thing. And he'll come back eventually. He just needs to, get smashed by the material energy again. Everyone comes back eventually, so. You had a pointer?
Make friends. Just make friends with people. And they'll come back. Because they don't get that kind of consideration. Lack of exploitative mentality. So, in one sense, reaching, it's just making friends with people. Otherwise, too much preaching, you maybe turn them off. Give them things to do.
Yeah, very good.
Think of things to do. That's why the farm is such an easy place to engage with, because it heaps of stuff to do.
Yeah, it's a good point, because
Things to do that they can do. I remember one of the first services that the devotees gave me, was to paint gold leafing on the filigree. And God, that was so good and hard. And I think, wow, it got me stuck up here. And something I had never done before. you know, we can take a leaf out of David Maharaj's book, you know, we make it easy.
Hmm.
So, make friends and also give people things to do, but make it so that they can actually, you know, things they can do.
Yeah, it's a good point. And give people ownership. You know, when people own something, they'll become attached to it. Like, you know, that's my watch. I've become attached to it. The devotee gave that to me many years ago, right? So but I'm attached to that watch, mainly because that devotee gave it to me. So, you know, if I lost it, I would be disappointed. Because, you know, so it's ownership. So when you attach to something, you've got ownership of something, you become attached. So give them services that they own. It's their service. Right? And then they become attached to it. Just like at the farm on the retreat, one of the new people who was coming along, she's becoming interested in Krishna consciousness. Then after we offered the bhoga to the pictures to Krishna, then she got to wash the plate. Right? Now for me, that's just like, you know, I've done it so many times. For me, it's not a big deal. You just wash the deity's plate, that's it, it's finished. But for her, it was like the greatest honor of her life. I can wash Krishna's plate. She said to me, really? I can wash Krishna's plate? And I said, yeah, you can wash it. And she's washing it with love and devotion. You know, I just like wash it and just put it away. She's washing it, like, you know, for her it was like so it's ownership. When you give people ownership of something, then they become attached and then they won't leave. Any other question or comment?
Regarding your service class, there was a very straightforward comment made that there is no hope for liberation unless you have a son, and which sounded very confusing or demotivating for some people. So,
What's the point?
so yesterday there was a comment made in the class that there is no hope. There was a very straightforward comment that for liberation unless you have a son.
Unless you have a son, there's no hope for liberation. No, that's a karma kanda concept. That's a Vedic. That's all about, it's actually in reference to going to swaga. Yeah. When you die, the son does pinda for you, you know, does the, pinda, does the oblations for you and does that. Like even Lord Chaitanya, when Jagannath Mishra disappeared, he went to Gaya and he worshipped the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, right, for the benefit of his father in like his next life, like that. But that's a karma kanda situation. It's not, for devotees, that's not relevant. You don't have to worry about those things. That's all.
Life is not successful if you don't have a son.
Yeah, then like we're finished. Yeah. I don't have a son and a Rupa, and we're finished. That means we're not going back to Godhead. So that's karma. That's karma kanda.
If you don't chant Hare Krishna, then your life is finished.
Yeah. So those statements, they're true, but from a karma kanda perspective. And it's talking about going to Swaga. It's not talking about going back to Krishna. Because it says in the Gita, in the 8th chapter, Prabhupada comments, material circumstances are not, they don't affect a devotee. Because in the Gita, there's a statement by Krishna himself